Hello again, welcome to the Memoir Channel. My name is Nikki Smart, and today I have a bit of a treat for everyone. Because I have two authors. I have Minu Cash, who wrote The Painted Pink Dress, and I have David Crow, who wrote The Pale-Faced Lie. So this was actually Minu's idea. She has a lot of respect for David, as he does for her, and they have both written these very engaging, best-selling memoirs about their incredibly traumatic childhoods and how they got through it. And there's a lot of similarities, so they wanted to discuss that, and I think this is a great idea. So, they both had this abusive fathers and neglectful mothers and family secrets and sort of distorted realities, and had to have loads of resilience to get through. I've actually interviewed them both separately, so I'm really looking forward to seeing them both again. Let's go say hi to Minu and David. Hi, David. Hi, Minu. Welcome to the Memoir Channel.
Hi there, Nikki. It's good to see you again.
Yes, it's lovely to see you again. And you, David.
So,
Yeah.
Nikki, I had a lot of fun with you the first time, and I'm very excited to be with you a second time. And Menu's, it's nice to meet you in person. We have the same publisher, and
that's right.
I read her book in advance and did a blurb. It was very well deserved. We both had crazy lives, different crazy, but crazy.
Yes, it's crazy because I look at his book and I saw how much there's so many similarities, and I was really touched by your story because it really touched my story, and I couldn't believe how we both grew up, especially the dyslexia part.
Yeah.
And it's just it's nice, especially when you're writing a story, because it's very difficult to do.
Right. Well, what's funny for me, and I had dyslexia and hearing problems. I'm actually deaf in my left ear, but I've had cochlear implant and I have almost 65% of normal hearing. That was a difficult operation, but I lost hearing at 3 years old because of an ear infection. And my dad, we're Indians and Indians don't get sick. And
yes,
by the time he took me in, my brain had cooked that left ear, and there's only about 30% my right ear, and I'll have to probably do a cochlear within the next 2 years. But the other thing, this is where our stories are very similar, but my father, who I knew obviously my whole life, very intelligent guy, he would give me IQ tests. And if you're dyslexic, it takes time. It's not I didn't hear right. He would flip books upside down and say, I have reverse dyslexia. I can read upside down and backwards, and you're too stupid to read it, right to left to right. And he used to just pound me constantly for being stupid, and he never let up.
Yeah, I mean, I know that one of the topics you wanted to actually discuss was the dyslexia, right, Minu? And I thought that was interesting that you both had it, and then you both overcame it to write. I mean, writing's probably quite difficult if you have dyslexia. And so I actually Googled, if you have like a really traumatic childhood, can that cause dyslexia? And yes, it can, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
David found out earlier he had it. And the fact that his dad was very intelligent probably helped you, David.
Yours too.
Mine, I didn't find out really until, and I did feel stupid, growing up as a child, because mine wasn't discovered until I got into college. And I struggled a lot. And I think what helped me the most, David, was to memorize things. I don't know if you had the same thing, but memorizing.
Well, one thing that I did get, and I know you got plenty of good things too, I have a nearly photographic memory. And and as a lobbyist now, I run a lobbying firm. I can remember almost everything I hear, and when I come back, I write it down. And because of the memory, when I give an hour talk by writing 5 words on a 3x5, because if you're dyslexic, and I know Minu did the same thing, your brain makes allowances, and there are other parts of the brain you can draw upon. And so dyslexia, I call it my superpower because so many people write me, and Minu and I know when you're a kid, it's far from a superpower because when you go to basic elementary school, you write in cursive, you read, you regurgitate, and right off the bat, we can't do that. I remember one day I wrote my name on the board and the DAVID, I did the D backwards so it looked like a B, and the entire class laughs. And there's a lot of things, and over time, of course, you can figure all this out. But growing up with it, it's awful.
Yeah.
It is awful. It's awful, especially because you know what's going on. You do think you're stupid and you're not smart, but you know you're smart because you can figure other things out. And it was just more the writing and the words, and kids would make fun of me, and that was hard because kids could be really mean. And I just pushed forward though, because to me, I knew that an education was important. I grew up, and you were talking about your ear infections. I had tons of ear infections when I was little. I never went to the hospital, to the doctor, except for emergencies, and which I had a few. And but it was what I was saying is that the kids were not only teasing me about the dyslexia, they teased me about my name.
Yeah.
And to me, I hated my name. I hated to stand up and introduce myself because kids would just make all kinds of nicknames for me. And up to this day, I still have to spell my name out because of that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I can understand. My childhood best friend died last week on the reservation.
I'm sorry.
And I
I'm
was
sorry.
told the
Yes.
guy who gave me the name Gagi, which is Crow, for those of you who remember, those first days in the Navajo Indian Reservation were incredibly hard for me. We just abandoned my mom. And when we got to the reservation, we lived in an area that outsiders aren't supposed to live. So my dad said we were all Cherokee, but I looked the way I looked, and if I don't look Cherokee. And it didn't fool any of the Navajo kids, no matter how many times we repeated it. And I got beat up constantly. And when you have the name Crow on an Indian reservation, which is an Indian name, and you look like me, it's men who can understand. It's
Yes,
so
I can.
ridiculous. But Henry McCabe was his name, completely changed my life because when I said the name Crow, instead of making fun of me or turning it into a joke, he said, "Your name is Gagi. You're one of us now." The Navajo word for crow is Gagi. And once people started calling me that, and I had his backing and friendship, it changed my entire life. It doesn't sound like a much, but we moved 5 times in 6 years. I was always behind the school. We always left in the middle of a school year, never telling anybody why we left. You start in the middle, no one knows you. And we had just abandoned my mom. Minu's been through several things similar. And I got beat up about a dozen times walking to the school. 4 or 5 kids jumping you. I get home,
Yes.
tell my dad that. He gets out a buckle end of the belt and beats me and says, "You better fight back, boy." So you're getting beat both ends.
Right.
But you meet somebody who basically just likes you immediately and decides to take you under their wing and treat you like family. It's something you never ever forget. And sure Minu has some similar stories that when you grow up like us and you're in a really brutal childhood and you go through lots of changes, when somebody's kind to you genuinely, you absolutely never forget that.
No, you don't. I I have had that. Um, I have very few people that I could look up to, but they really. One of them was my sixth grade teacher, who was a science teacher. Took me under his wing, and I was very good with science and math, but I wasn't good at the rest of the stuff. And I like history, but I didn't have a good history teacher. So that teacher actually believed in me and told me he knew something was off because he knew the rest of my family and I didn't look like the rest. And he said to me, he goes, "There's something special about you." And he said, you just need, but they didn't know at that time that I had dyslexia. You just got to work hard, get your education, and you're going to go far. And that stuck with me. His name was Mr. Maben. I'll never forget.
Because I think in both our childhoods, when you walk inside your home, which should be the most loving and nurturing environment you can have, for me, it was the worst environment you could have. And one of the things that helped me is that I spent every waking moment possible outside my own doors. And so as the paper boy, I cut grass, I did anything to be outside all the time. And I talked to anybody who would talk back to me, would be friendly back, including every adult in town. I would just walk up and say, I'm your paper boy. What's your name? I mean, and I was like 10 and they're 60 or whatever. And they got a kick out of it mostly. And
I'm sure they all loved you, yeah.
yeah, and as a result, I kind of grew up on the street, but in a good way, right? So when you grow up in really terrible circumstances, you look for anything you can do to improve that circumstance.
Sure.
And you're mostly going to find it's outside the doors that you live in. And for me, even though I made a lot of mistakes and had a lot of bad things happen, a lot of good things came from it. I look at my lobbying career where we have like 40 clients and they're from many countries, deal with all kinds of people. Everything I use, I learned by the age of 10.
We're very resourceful, aren't we?
Yeah, well, you have to be. Either that, I tell people, either I would be resourceful or I'd have 3 teeth and I'd be pumping gas on the reservation. There's not a lot of in between.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we both are very familiar with our lives that were very difficult as a child, because I don't have a lot of fun childhood memories, except for when I would go see my grandparents in Mexico. Those were my fun memories because, as David, he was working at a very young age. I was too. And it was very harsh conditions with the heat and just working hard because we had to help support the family.
And for me, similarly, I didn't have grandparents that were good. My own parents hated their parents who hated them. And, this stuff just carries on when you let it. But what I found was particularly, you look at, here's a Navajo Indian reservation. The kids that I went to school with, their parents were in the Indian boarding schools. And for those who don't know, they're basically concentration camps. They would take these Navajo children and they would round them up, take them to this boarding school where they were strict Franciscan nuns, and other nuns were very hard. They'd shave their heads, make them eat lye soap to get all the poison out of them. And they woke up every day saying, we have to kill the Indian to save the man. And they were harsh chores and punishment. The reason we had code talkers to help win World War II, they were the only group of people that were fluent in Navajo and English. And no one in the world knew the Navajo language. It had never been written down. Makes Chinese look simple. But anyway, I went to school with their kids, and naturally their kids are not real fond of a pale-faced looking kid because every story they hear is what they did to them. And and I'm sure, Minu, with going to Mexico, there's similar things here, right? Cultural things where who the hell are you? And I don't like you. But what you learn is that there's goodness in most people, not all.
No.
That you can find a way to tap it. And the next thing you know, you have a lot of arms around you. And it was probably the thing that got me through.
It is. I think me too. It was easier to just go with the flow and kill them with kindness, really, is what I found, because I had to for survival sometimes. And people that don't accept you because of your skin. I mean, here I was, a light-skinned girl in a Mexican culture. And yes, there are a lot of Mexicans that are fair complexions, but it was different for me because I was in the United States in the family of 10 and 9 because one passed away. But it was just the difference, the culture, and they don't want to accept you. And especially when they're teenagers and they're younger, you know. And I'm sure that's what you got too, because here you were in a culture that they're against the white people, you know, and that's the way our life was.
Every one of my childhood friends and their family walked up to me and said, "Thank you for being here. You have no idea how much Henry would be touched." I said, "No, no, no. The honor is mine. You have no idea what Henry, his mother and father, his brother and sister, and his friends did for me. He was the one that had everything, right? He had amazing family. I walk in and he puts his arm around me and turns me into his own family. That was so profound that I said I'd have walked a million miles to come to his funeral. And this one hurts almost more than anything because of all my early memories of people helping me. He's at the top of the list. And I kept in touch. We kept in touch the whole way.
I mean, it's quite lovely to know that it just takes one person, you know, to completely change your experience. Life. It's pretty amazing.
So, it is.
Well, I think I was going to say, I know that one of the topics you wanted to discuss as well was forgiveness, right? It's like, Minu, you were saying,
yes.
And yeah, I think both of you got to that point.
Yes. As you know, I think that for a long time, I knew something was different about me, and I was angry. I was really angry with how my father had treated us and how my mother was neglecting us. And after I started to discover something and as I found out the truth, I was angry with her. Even it wasn't until like she passed away and I tried to forgive her, but I was still angry, you know. But I found that forgiving her with how I lived. I mean, it wasn't just me who suffered, it was my brothers and sisters too. But forgiving helped me to get through it, because holding on to that, it's hard to move forward and to love, you know. And I think I forgive her because she didn't know what else to do. You know, that was back then, everything was taboo, you know. And she tried. It was what she had, you know. She tried, and that was her. I can't judge her, and I felt a lot of shame. I know she felt shame, and when I found out, I felt shame too, and I had to forgive, and I learned to forgive, because carrying anger it's like poison.
It's toxic. Yeah.
It's so toxic. Yes. So I learned to forgive.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to.
No, sure. It's not easy. And I know, David, you said you had a really hard time forgiving your father too, because he didn't really deserve forgiveness, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I grew up thinking that everything that happens is my fault. And I think another thing, and maybe Minu had this too, I kind of read between the lines in her book, you know, interjecting my own experience, is that you think you're unlovable, but you grow up to think you don't deserve it, which may even be worse, because I think of all the cycles I tried to break, that was the hardest. And there was a moment, and my readers will know this, and Minu's readers will know what happened to her. But at 10 years old, my father abandoned my mom, but right in front of me, he hit her hard, smashed her to the ground. She had no money, nowhere to go, and she was helpless. I would have stood a better chance on the street at 10 than she did at her age. And watching my father do that, she tried to grab onto me and said, at least let me have my oldest boy. We can go out on welfare. He can deliver papers, cut grass, and he can save me. And my father ripped me out of her hands and said, nobody wants you. And, you know, very vicious words. When he got in the car with me, he hit me really hard with his elbow up against my head, and it bounced off the window, side window, but I didn't feel anything. I'm convinced if you shot me with a high-caliber bullet, I would not have felt it. I was having a nervous breakdown, and I did not know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
But I also realized at age 54, when I went back to that same house and visualized what happened, that's the moment I broke. And that's the moment I stopped caring about myself, started feeling completely unworthy. And I describe it as I built an imaginary prison that I could never get out of. That meant I was unworthy,
Yeah.
and I didn't deserve anything. And the only success I had was in business or doing things with um, sports and other things. I could jump outside that for the moment, but inside, I grew up hating myself.
Yeah.
I suspect a lot of people who are in bad cycles that don't get out of them have this as an issue. So if you try to counsel a person who's completely broken, the first thing you have to do is convince them that they deserve it. And that's going to be the hardest thing you do.
Right.
And when I get interviewed with about kids going into foster care, I do a lot of that. They try to build trust by giving them toys and telling them you can trust me. That kid never believes that.
No. Let me just ask, Minu, did you have that same feeling of unworthiness and that you didn't deserve stuff? Did that take you a long time to sort that out and break through that?
You know, with that, when I was around them, yes, but I always was confident because I had friends that were moving along successfully, and I hung on to that. And but I really didn't feel that. I was more, it was hard for me when I was there with them because when I was I moved away when I was 17, but I still keep coming back. So they were holding me back. So I stayed away as much as possible. I always hung out with people that were, that had a future, they had a career, they had an education. And to me, I did feel the love. I could feel the love, but it was a different love with my parents. You know, like I felt a distance with my mother. And because at that point, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what was going on. And the fact that she was hiding this from me, it made me angry because I knew deep down inside what the truth was, but I didn't have any proof.
Right. Can I ask you both then, did writing these memoirs that you both written, was that helpful? I mean, was that cathartic? Did that kind of move things out of your system and clear it up a bit? And
it did for me. It actually was therapeutic. I didn't realize how much. Because the pages and chapters, it's just not the story that defines me.
Right.
Okay? Not the story that I wanted to pass on. So I realized that when I was writing the book, because it broke me down, and reliving it was really hard. There was moments that I would have to stop a chapter, and I felt good about it once I was done. And I thought, oh my gosh, I felt really free, and I felt a lot of peace. So it did help me just to write it because it's there and it's in the book, and it's hopefully it inspires somebody else. You know, I've had people, I don't know if David has had people reach out to him and tell him how they have similar stories, and writing it really was therapeutic for me. And I didn't realize how much. In fact, I was afraid to put it out there. I don't know about you, David, but it was like when it was done and ready, I was like, I'm really going to put this out there. And I was worried that people weren't going to accept me because I was this totally different person than what I grew up. They didn't know that, you know? So it really did. It was therapeutic for me. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was different. the therapeutic, say, my friends, if you go from high school, college on, right? I moved away from the reservation. I'm here in the East Coast. They all knew something was really wrong, but I would never talk about it, right? I made jokes about it. And so the therapeutic part was when I had the breakthrough and I understood what I had done to myself. I mean, you always know what somebody did to you, but it was what I'd done to myself. And when I understood that, that was the breakthrough. Writing it was easy. Getting to the breakthrough was hard. So this is just bookends of the same trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I found that stunned me, still does, my book came out in 2019, and all of my college friends and all of the people I work with, clients all over the country and some international, they all wrote something similar. We always knew something was wrong. We always knew you wouldn't say, and now we know. And so I even talked about, I broke up with this girl in college. This was right after my dad buried a couple people in West Virginia and used me as an accomplice, which just wrecked years of my life. Well, I broke up with this young lady, even though I really loved her. Her dad was a retired professional hockey player who sold insurance. Her mom was the perfect mom. She had perfect siblings. And they kept telling me, don't worry about your family background. We'll love you. And I'm like, no, you won't. I wouldn't want my daughter to marry anybody who had my background. And I can't believe you're any different than that. I said, how many people do you know where you said, well, I grew up like this, but don't worry, I'm fine. And of course, I could never have her family around my dad because his jealousy would be incredibly difficult. Well, you fast forward almost 50 years, I get a 3-page email from her. I'm like, oh my God. And she said, well, now I know what was wrong. And everything would have been all right. I sent her a note back and I said, look, you married a guy you loved, you have children, you're still married, everything's intact. That could have never happened with me. I was not in any kind of a place where that could have happened to me. And the best thing that could have happened to you was me walking away. I had nothing to offer you, and I stand by that.
Yeah. So listen, I'm sorry, but we're actually going to run out of time in a few minutes.
Okay, yeah, we're running out of time. I just want to tell David that I wanted to read the passage where he had he ran out to the desert and on his bike, and they didn't know he was gone. And he was out there for a long time, and he fell in a hole, and is stuck there for a long time until one of the workers from where his dad worked, ESPGNG, I think it's called, picked up, came down, and he helped them. I can only imagine. To me, it relates to my story when I was dropped off in Mexico as a 13-year-old to walk the desert to find my way back home. So I'm like, oh my gosh, because that is the story. That's what I wanted, David, is because you and I have so many similar stories, and that one just like, I remember how the fear I had, and it was I going to die out here. And I think you felt the same way.
Yeah.
When you down, and your parents didn't know anything, and my parents didn't even know that I was out there.
The story that really sticks with me about you, and will always stick with me, almost goes back to the cover of your book and the title. So you're in school, you have hand-me-downs, your family's just getting by, and you're around people who have a lot, particularly compared to you.
Yes.
And you're in school with with classmates, and a lot of them are not kind. And a girl walks up and says, ha ha ha, that's my dress. We threw it in the garbage. You're wearing a throwaway of mine, and humiliated you. And I don't know how your other readers felt, but that hit me the hardest because that's such an in your face, you are nothing. You are absolutely nothing. In fact, you're worthless. I threw my dress away. You ought to go throw your own self away. And here's a kid smugly making fun of you And that might have been the best thing you owned that you got out of goodwill. And of course, it's never the kid's fault, but you don't tell a kid who's young, we all know how impressionable we are when we're young. Anything, your hair's
Right.
curly or you're too short or, whatever. But to have something like that, that hit me really hard because there's no reason for that kid to have done that to you, to make fun of you, and she humiliated you and tried to make you feel like you were nothing.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that I've had a lot of people comment about that part about how I was so resilient about saying coming with a comeback, because it is my courage that she was trying to make me feel bad and I fought back.
What was your comeback?
She said, oh, that she was talking about the dress that, her mother had given away and that I was wearing it. And I said, well, yeah, too bad. It looks better on me than it did on you. Or that was my comeback.
Good.
And it was a good comeback.
Yeah.
And the other part of your book that hit me really hard was when you finally figured out who your father was.
Yes. When I first found out and I saw his picture that I got for Christmas and I opened it up and I just cried and cried and cried because it was finally I knew who I was, because I didn't feel like I belonged for so long. And that just really brought me to tears, because I think when you think you're not accepted and you're different, you really want to know where you got what you got, like, why am I so different from my family? Why is it that I look different? Why do I think differently? Why don't I? Because I love my culture, but I wasn't so like the Mexican music, and I couldn't really get into it. And it just, a lot of it makes sense because you feel like I don't have the Mexican, the moves, the dancing, which I learned as I got older, but it was such a relief for me to finally see a face that I look like.
Forgive me for suggesting this, but the other part I picked up from that, and again, I think any great book allows you to put yourself in it and imagine your own self. If it's really well written, and yours was, that you went your whole life, and a father who wasn't willing to acknowledge that you're my kid, that you had to discover it through some crazy card at an age that is far beyond what it should have been. Nobody was honest with you, and they created a feeling in you that you didn't belong to anybody. But a guy who was around you your whole life, I mean, could have easily reached out and done the right thing. He didn't.
No, and that's the part of forgiving, because I was angry about that. I was really angry. I was really angry with my mother because she still took it to her grave.
Well, and you should have been.
Because,
in my book, I have a lot with my dad in his last year of life. My dad would not have reached back out, but he was dying. And my wife and I, who's a saint, she's a saint, were his legal and medical guardians, and we took care of him. And as much as I didn't want to, I talked to him every day and on weekends, and I'd spend time with him. And one day, he nearly died in the hospital one night, and he wrote this note at 3 a.m. Can you ever forgive me for what I did? And then he woke up the next day. He was fine. He acted like he never did that, right? If I need you, you're the greatest thing in the world. When I don't need you, get lost. And we had a conversation that day, and I said, Dad, what went on in your mind last night? And he said, well, I didn't mean it, and don't even pay any attention. And I said, well, that's your deep insecurity and your fantastic inability to love yourself or anybody else. And I said, guess what? The reason I forgive you, and I have, It's not because you deserve it. You don't deserve a damn thing. You don't deserve a son like me, and I don't deserve a father like you. I'm treating you the way I would want to be treated if I was actually a really good man. And in many ways, you're really not. And he looked at me and stared at me, turned his head, and I said, look, we're at a point where we should stop kidding ourselves. You would never be here if we reversed the situations. No, I would not. You would never worry about me. No, I wouldn't worry about you. And I said, so understand that forgiveness has nothing to do with you. You deserve nothing. But here I am. I still love you. There are days I don't know why, but you're still my dad. End of conversation.
Yes, because your heart is different than his, really. And all you wanted was to have a real childhood. And they robbed that from us, really. Because I look at so many, and I admire families who have brothers and sisters and the love they grew up in with their families. And we didn't have that.
Yeah,
you know,
my family has that.
And I built that with my family, though. That's the cycle that you and I broke.
I think if there's anything good about my story, if you will, is, and I probably had nothing to do with this, my kids are fantastic parents. They're very loved. They're very nurtured. They know that they are. They've got parents that actually love each other. And whenever I get to be around them, I'm just like, oh my God, at least that happened. And I get to be a part of it. And it's the greatest thing.
That's a big win, I would say. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is.
Big win. So I'm going to wrap it up here, and I just want to tell you both that I asked ChatGPT if David Crow and Minu Cash were going to talk to each other, how would that conversation go? And it just came, all the stuff came out, and here were two things that I picked up that I just want to tell you. So ChatGPT said that David would probably say, my father didn't deserve forgiveness, but I realized forgiveness wasn't about him. It was about freeing myself. So I liked that. And then ChatGPT had Minu say, so you're talking to David and you're saying to him, so maybe both our memoirs are really love letters to the people we became despite it all. And I really like that, because it is, right? In a way.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And like David, I know that has a lot of great reviews on and I've read them on Amazon, and I see a lot of people mention that they're happy that he wrote this book because they had a similar story.
Right.
You know, and I've had the same thing. I've had the same reviews.
And they're proud of you. I'm proud of you too.
No, I'm proud of both of you. And thank you so much for coming on today. And Minu, it was a lovely idea.
Thank you. I've never met David till now.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to really meet him and say thank you.
I'll get up with and we'll do something together. And Nikki, thank you for being the one.
Absolutely.
I remember you so well from the first time, and I remember thinking, well, what a wonderful person, and what a great thing you're doing, bringing these stories to light.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, both of you. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.